Hello, everybody. This is Kid Malek from Malek and Malek. I'm gonna do kind of an update on what I'm doing. I haven't done a video in a while, and I just had a life experience that I think many of you injured workers can relate to. So, on July 10th, I ended up what I ended up doing was injuring my right upper arm, and I thought that I had it torn either a tendon or ruptured a bicep or something. And what ended up happening was I fractured my humerus bone, which is again your upper arm bone. And how did I do this? Well, it's not a work injury, so I didn't file a claim. And but I was so about a couple months, two months, I was having pain in my shoulder, and then the pain ended up going down here when I would do bench specifically. So I would bench press, and then I'd feel this excruciating pain, and I kind of was like, I gotta, calm down with this, take a break. So what I ended up doing for a month is I would do kind of PT for my shoulder, build up the strength of my shoulder, and so I did that for a month. I didn't bench at all, and then what I ended up doing is on July 10th, after I'd done all my other exercises, I was like, I'm gonna see if I could bench again. So I loaded, I did the bear bar, and the bear bar is about, I think it's like 45 pounds, maybe, an Olympic bar. So I did that, and I was like, okay, let's just get warmed up. So I put two 45-pound plates on it, and whatever the math is, it ends up being 135. So I did, some reps. 135 was fine. Was feeling okay. Didn't have the pain right there, and then I put two more plates on it. So now I'm at 225, and I was doing my reps. I was going fine. I was actually feeling strong, so I don't know if I built up muscle doing the shoulder stuff or whatever. And then, so I was like, I'm feeling pretty good. So I put, I just want to see how far I could go. So I put 20 more pounds on it. So it's a 245, and I was, after, I did one rep, two reps, fine. Third rep, I have it extended up, and I heard a crunch. And in my mind's eye, I almost could see my bone break, but I also, at the time, I was like, did the bar break? So lo and behold, so basically, on the right side, the because I put clips on, the weight just slammed down, and then I had the weight held up with my left, so I pushed that over, put that down, and there was this British gentleman. I work out at, there's a gym on the ninth floor of Grant, so you have an eclectic mix of people. So there's this old British gentleman, he's working on his stuff over there, he's looking directly at me, and he's like, oh no, and he's like, can I help you? And I was like, no sir, I think I'm done. So I go to the locker room, get my stuff, and then I walk down to the ER. Somebody helps me walk down to the ER. And the only reason I bring this up is because it's kind of funny, the parallels that you see. So whenever I go to these hearings with a lot of injured workers, I'll often see that at a ER they've had done x-rays, and a lot of times they're kind of useless for what their issue is. It will show nothing because the x-ray is basically a diagnostic for bones. And so as I was in the ER in excruciating pain, I'm kind of shaking and stuff, he's like, do you want an x-ray? And I was like, you know what, I'll pass on the x-ray because I think I tore my rotator cuff or ruptured my bicep or something. And so I didn't have an x-ray then. Had I had an x-ray then, they would have seen that I had fractured my bone. And I'll probably end up loading up the x-ray so you could see what I'm talking about. But they gave me a shot of Toradol, and then he's like, do you want anything else? And he was going to give me a shot of muscle relaxation. I was like, you know what, I got an appointment. I got to speak with some people. I got to go back to the office. So I think I'm okay. And they gave me some scripts for some medicine, and then I left, and I went, went back to the office, did what I had to do, and then I went home, ended up going to my PCP, and so I ended up finagling my way to get an MRI. They did an MRI of the shoulder, and then I got an ortho consult with Dr. Roble over at Orthopedic One, and so the first thing they had me do is they had me do an x-ray. They have an x-ray on site, so they had me do an x-ray of my arm. And so I'm sitting in the little patient room, And Dr. Robles like, I think I can explain what's going on with you. So he takes me to the his computer, and he shows me he's like, that's a fracture. And he's like, I don't do fractures, so I'm going to hand you off to somebody who does do fractures. So they hand me off to Dr. Dimitris. But the point is, you know, had I, and I talked to Dr. Dimitris, and I said I'm an idiot. I should have gotten the X-ray. He goes, you know, logically, usually don't, these kind of fractures don't usually happen in the manner that yours happened. You usually don't have fractures bench pressing. But what I think happened is I had that pain that I had for the 2 or so months was a stress fracture, and then what I ended up doing is pushing it over the edge, and you know, then putting all that extra weight on it, basically put it over the edge, and then I cracked it or broke it or whatever, however you want to say it. It's not connected now, so basically I have 2 free floating bones in my arm. And so now tomorrow I'm gonna have hardware put in to lock the bones in place so they heal together. But because of I guess it's just the one thing is, kind of like your work injuries, nobody ever plans for this stuff. I didn't plan. I had no idea that I had this stress fracture or whatever was going on with my arm, and I had no concept that my arm was just going to explode that day. You know, and it was kind of, I mean, if you go to the gym, you know, if you're a gym attender or you go to the gym, it's kind of a big deal if you can't go to the gym. And I think I'll be able to go back to the gym after this, but I think I'm done with benching for that matter. I'm kind of scared of it now, frankly. But the point is, like you, I mean, I didn't plan for this, and it's like you didn't plan to get injured, you know. So it happens, and it's maybe some things you could avoid, but some things, I mean, obviously I could avoid this not having to go to the gym, but if you're working, you can't avoid that. You got to work. And the other thing that's interesting is, if you go to these hearings, I've done hundreds, if not thousands, of these hearings at the Industrial Commission, and they put so much emphasis on these emergency room records. I mean, it's almost like that's the gospel, or it's like the word from God, you know, and they put so much emphasis on what's in that ER record, and and to the point where if there's no, there'll be like a common argument of the defense folks is, well, there was no documentation of X, Y, or Z problems. Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I had a fracture when I went in there, and I don't think it's any knock on the ER person that saw me, because he was a very nice individual, you know, very caring, sensitive, but I don't know if I would have been able to do any of these like orthopedic, what they call provocative tests, and since I refused to get an X-ray, you wouldn't have seen the fracture. So, but if you look at the actual medical records that they sent me home with, the diagnosis was right upper arm pain. So a fracture is much more different than right upper arm pain. Right upper arm pain just sounds like, oh, I have pain in my upper arm, versus a fracture. So the point is, sometimes just because something's not in the ER records doesn't mean that it's not there, or if they didn't examine you doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's just maybe that the doctor or the PAC or the CNP didn't examine that body part to the extent that they should have, or they could have, because they were focused on something else. For instance, in my case, I think they were focused on just lessening the pain that I had in my arm at that time, and assessing, oh, does he have a bone sticking out of his arm? Well, he doesn't have a bone sticking out, so he's okay. And the other thing is, sometimes if they say you need to get an X-ray, you know, maybe you should get an X-ray, or if they offer you an X-ray, maybe you should get an X-ray. I don't know. The other thing you gotta weigh is, you know, ER visits are pretty expensive too, so you gotta kind of weigh that aspect of things. But and the other issue is, so and this is an issue that I run into a lot with clients is, they're like, hey, I got injured. I haven't, I haven't had my surgery or whatever. It's been so long, or and that's kind of the way the BWC is. It's like, and it's not because anybody's, dropping the ball. It's just there's all these appeals periods built into the thing, and the way that you have to build up your case makes it such that if you, for instance, let's say you injure your lower back, and so usually we'll get the claim allowed for, like, for instance, a lumbar sprain, right? Now, a lumbar sprain is only going to get you, if once we get the claim allowed, well, first we have to prove that happened at work and that you have a lumbar sprain. So once that happens, and that could be, you get injured in April, you might not be till May or June before you actually have that hearing. Once you have that hearing for the lumbar sprain and it's allowed, they might appeal it, you might have another hearing. So maybe finally it's 100% allowed in June, okay? Well, all that allows you to get, you're not going to get surgery with a lumbar sprain. So what that'll allow you to get is you can get MRIs, EMGs, maybe an ortho consult, and then what we have to do is we have to take that information from these diagnostics, and we have to see, okay, does it show like a herniated disc, for instance, a herniated disc at L5S1? If it does, then we have to reach out to the surgeon or the specialist, and we have to ask, hey, does this relate to the back injury? And that takes time. So, and then once we get all our ducks in a row, then we'll file an additional condition. We'll request that the claim be additionally allowed for, say, L5S1 herniated disc. There's going to be a file review possibly by the BWC. There might be an IME by the employer if they're involved to a certain extent. Then you might have, finally might have that hearing for that herniated disc condition, say, October, November. So let's say it gets allowed. Then you go back to the ortho specialist. Doesn't mean you're automatically going to get another consult with the ortho specialist. Your surgeon has to, or your physician of record, your BWC doctor has to request it. It might be denied, right? And we might have to appeal that, have to go to hearing to get that authorized. So let's say we have to do that, and finally we get it authorized. You go back, and that ortho specialist, the surgeon, whatever, he's like, hey, I want to do, surgery at L5S1. We're going to do a discectomy or something. That might have to be appealed and gone to hearing. So there's these delay. And meanwhile, you're not getting better. You're in pain, and it sucks. Now, whereas if this wasn't a work injury, for instance, this wasn't a work injury, I just used my personal insurance, and I was like, hey, I scheduled with a specialist. So the injury happened on July 10th. I scheduled it with an appointment with a specialist, I believe, the following Monday, and then he ended up having me undergo some full arm MRIs like 4 days later, and then finally I had the follow-up today. So I'm going to have surgery tomorrow. So you're talking July 10th, and then I'm having surgery July 22nd. That's super quick, and that's never going to happen in the workers' comp world. The only time you'll have the expedited treatment like that is if it's like basically you have a bone sticking out of your arm, or you're the serious back injury that has to be treated right away. If it's not such an acute injury like that, it's going to take a while to get that treatment authorized. And that's every claimant undergoes the same frustrating process. Is it fair? I don't know if it's fair. Is it the best way to do things? I don't think so. I think sometimes when you delay treatment, I think it makes things worse. But it's the system we have. It's better than nothing, I guess. But sometimes when people ask, well, should I do this through the claim? I was like, if you could do it through your private insurance, it might be better. You'll get treated faster. You'll get back to work faster that way. Some people's insurance allows them to do that. Some people have insurance that allow them to do that. Some people don't have any insurance, so they don't have that option. So the only recourse is to go through the workers' comp system. But I guess my point is, to a certain extent, I can relate, I could sympathize and empathize with you folks who have these sudden injuries. I mean, I've had broken arm before, even when I was a kid, but this is a new one, and it does suck. I mean, it really sucks, getting injured and not being able to do what you want to do, and the uncertainty that maybe you'll have lingering issues in the future from the thing. In my case, I'm fortunate. I work a sedentary job. I don't need to use both hands. I could type with one hand. I could use the mouse with one hand, and I could basically be able to work. If they, God forbid, they cut off this arm, I'd still be able to work. But a lot of folks aren't in that position, and that's why it's good to reach out to an attorney, either us, Malek, or there's a lot of good attorneys in Ohio. So I think anybody who specializes has a lot of compassion and a passion to help injured workers. So that's why we're in business, and that's why I think a lot of folks are in business, because they see an injustice, and we're here to try to balance the scales to a certain extent. So that being said, if you have any questions or concerns, you can post them in the comments. You can always email me. I'll try to help you to the extent I can without violating, ethics laws. We're not allowed to give legal advice unless we represent folks. But if you want a free consult, you had an injury, it's always free. You can come in, and if you're not sure you want to hire an attorney, you can talk with us, and we could say, hey, maybe you should, or I think you're doing okay. But otherwise, hopefully you're doing okay, and I'll see you later, and hopefully this crazy arm gets fixed, and I'm not walking around with a gimp arm. So anyways, thanks for listening to this podcast, and I'll see you later. Bye.